Hey everybody. Today I have a promise to fulfill with reading The Wings by Yi-sung, because I'm supposed to be making a Yi-sung video at this point. Oh, I'm floating. Excuse me. At this point, I'm supposed to be making a Yi-sung video, and I haven't made a Yi-sung video yet. Because I haven't read his work, because I put it off for a while for some reason. I still don't know why. This was highly rated by my friend. And overall, I am a bit excited to view. Ooh, excuse me. The format this is done in is left to right, I think. No, is this right to left? No, it's still left to right. It's just fucking weird the way it's set up. Okay. Anyways. The Wings by Yi Sung, translated by An Jung Hyo and James B. Lee. Thanks, James B. Lee. The Wings encounters and departures Deathly Child. So, I only have the Wings here. I do not think I have Deathly Child. Or anything. So I'm just gonna like start raw. There's no reason to like drag this out. Have you ever seen a stuffed genius? I'm happy at a time like this. Even love is pleasant. Only when the body sways from fatigue does the soul sparkle like a new shiny coin. As nicotine seeps into my stomach infested by roundworms, a sheet of white paper opens in my head. I put down witty and paradoxical thoughts like checker pieces on that white sheet of paper. It is an abominable disease of common sense. I again plan a life of a woman. I'm a spiritual straggler who has been, so to speak, after a momentary peep at crystallized intellectualism, alienated from the strategies I love. I'm planning a life granting only half to the woman, half of everything that is, 1 foot planted in that sort of life. A half of myself chuckles at the other half, like two suns. I might even give up the life, bored to the bones by its ordinary events. Goodbye. Sorry, I had a milkshake, and there's syrup in my throat. Goodbye. You may indulge in the absurdity of hogging for the food you hate most, what's in paradox. It is worth trying to counterfeit yourself. Your creation would be sublime and conspicuous among the ordinary products you've never seen. Close down the 19th century if at all possible. The spirit of Dostoevsky can be easily wasted. Wise was he compared to Hugo to a loaf of bread for France. You must not be deceived by life or its phantom because of its details, right? Be out of harm's way, I pray you. When the bandage is cut, it bleeds. The gash will heal soon, I believe. Goodbye. Sentiment is a certain posture. I may only refer to the ingredients of that posture. If that posture develops into a stagnation, sentiment ceases to dispose of itself. In retrospect of my extraordinary maturity, I regularize my viewpoint of the world. A queen being a widow. Among the countless women, is there anyone who is not basically a widow? Pardon, is it an insult my theory would have that the whole of every woman in real life is a widow? Goodbye. The structure of house number 33 is just like that of a house of pleasure. At this house, 18 households live side by side, their paper lattice doors identical and the cooking holes identical too. And their residents are as young as blossoms. There is no sun, for they look away from the sun. They block the sun's way into the rooms under the pretext of airing the stained bedding quilts on the washline under their eaves. They take naps in the dusky rooms. Don't they sleep at night? I do not know. I never know because I sleep both day and night. In daytime, house number 33 of 18 families is very quiet. It is only quiet in the daytime. At dusk, they take their bedding quilts in. The lights on, the 18 rooms are brighter than they had been in the daytime. The sound of opening and closing slide doors continues till late hours. They become busy. All sorts of smells start wafting around. The smells of roasting fish, smell of wastewater, smell of soap. Nameplates are the most fascinating of all. There's a gate representing the 18 households, though, set apart at a corner. It is always open, like a pathway. Any peddler could freely pass through this gate at any time of the day. Dwellers buy bean-curd cakes at the door of their rooms, not out at the gate. To have all the nameplates at the 18 households put together at the gate of house number 33 makes no sense at all. Somehow, it has become custom that they put their nameplates above each door beneath the tablet showing the pompous names such as Eternal Perseverance Pavilion and Auspicious Pavilion. We sure were fashionable enough to stick to the custom. At a corner above the door, we tacked my wife's name card as large as a train ticket. I play with nobody, nor do I ever say hello to anybody. I do not want to exchange formalities with anybody but my wife. For me to play with or to say hello to anybody won't do any good in saving my wife's face. I regard my wife as that precious. I cherish my wife so dearly because among all the women of the 18 families at the house number 33, my wife is the most beautiful and, like her name card, the most petite woman. In the shaded world under the tin roof, she radiates as the most beautiful among all the blossoms of the 18 households. I cause an ignominious, cumbersome existence for her, looking after, just hanging around the flower. My room, it is not a house, because we never had one, should be by all means. The temperature of the room, please be. And the duskiness of the room comforted my eyes. I did not want any other room cooler or warmer than my own, nor a room darker or more comfortable. I thanked my room all the time because it seemed to maintain itself to please me, and I was glad that I might have been born to the world for that particular room. But I did not consider happiness or unhappiness. I never need to wonder whether I was happy or unhappy. You saying, or whoever the narrator is of this, seems to be extremely passive. Like, I could tell that immediately. I don't know. It kind of reminds me, and you can scream at me for this. It kind of reminds me of Merceau at part 1 of the book. The way he's so passive and he lets things be unless asked upon. That's like one of the only literary connections I can make so far because like I'm just trying to read this and absorb all of it in. The mentions of like blossoms reminds me a lot of Dongbaek personally. I wonder if Dongbaek in fact is the wife here. Considering the resentment she held towards Yisang in Canto 4, I wonder if that Dongbaek's the wife. I was sneaking suspicion. Well, Yisang was also like this before Canto 4. Yeah, that's true. That's also true. I bet like when they say the wife's name, it's gonna be like the craziest name drop, if ever. Because like, he just says my wife. He doesn't say like anything in specific. Anyways. Everything was alright as long as I was allowed to loaf day after day. That I could idle in the room fitting like a well-tailored suit to my body and soul was a convenient and comfortable situation to be in. An ideal atmosphere far from the otherworldly expectations. From the worldly speculations of happiness or unhappiness. I like that environment. My room, this absolute shelter, is the 7 from the gate. Lucky number 7. I love that number like a Medal of Honor. Wasn't the first ID he got the fucking 7 association? Like one of the first 2 stars he got? Like, hold on, let me... Sorry. Wasn't... Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, the first 2-star he got was 7 association! He got a 22-3-0-27. That's really funny. I'm glad I picked that up. Alright. I love that number like a Medal of Honor, but no one noticed that the sliding door dividing the room in half symbolized my destiny. The front part of the room has a little bit of sun. The sunshine as large as a wrapping cloth in the morning, shrinks to the size of a handkerchief later and then slips out the room. My den is the other part of the room without sunshine, of course. I do not remember who decided that the room with the sunshine was for my wife, and the other without sunshine belonged to me. I have no complaints, though. Yeah, he's so passive that he allows his wife to be on the side of the room that has sunshine compared to him. What that kind of reminded me of when I read that was also his first. It reminded me of Blade Lineage Sang, particularly because of how the way the den is described. And I think in the identity story, though I merely yearn to gaze out the window, here the paper covering its openings obstructs the moonlight, much to my heart's content. I don't know, that kind of reminded me of it a bit. It has become a major recreation of mine that I promptly go to the front of the room in the morning when my wife goes out and watch various balls on her makeup chest brilliantly glimmer with the sunbeam trickling in the eastern window I opened. I have fun scorching tissue paper, which only my wife is entitled to use with a small magnifying glass. The straight rays of the sun are refracted together at a focus, and that focus gets warmer and hotter until it starts scorching the soft paper, a feeble thread of smoke wriggling up, leaving a tiny dark hole. I'm so thrilled by this short spell of anxious waiting that it almost kills me. When I am tired of this, I play in many ways with my wife's handled looking glass. A mirror is a practical thing only when it reflects one's own face. At other times, it's only a plaything. A mirror is a practical thing only when it reflects one's own face. At other times, it is only a plaything. That is I think that's like verbatim in his canto when he was talking about mirror world possibilities. And the member who created the mirror. Soon I'm tired of this fun too. Or does Dongring say that? I forgot. Soon I'm tired of this fun too. My mischievous mind evolves from the physical level to a spiritual one. I put the looking glass down and crawl on my knees to the makeup chest to watch the cosmetic bottles in various colors. They are the most charming thing in the world. I pick one of them, open its stopper, draw the bottle to my nostrils, and slowly inhale. As an exotic, sensual scent seeps into my lungs, my eyelids heavily hang down despite myself. Definitely the scent is a segment of the smell of my wife's body. I replace the stopper and begin to think, which part of her body did I smell this from? I'm not sure. Why am I not sure? Because my wife's smell is the collection of all the smells from the bottles here. My wife's room is always luxuriant. While my room was so untrimmed that not even a single hook to hang clothes on could be found on the walls. In her room, colorful skirts and vests hung in billowing bundles down the numerous pegs nailed into the walls just beneath the ceiling. Various colorful patterns fascinate me. I think I am not so respectful because I used to try to visualize her body and the possible shape her body might take inside those clothes. However, I had few clothes. My wife seldom give me new ones. The only corduroy outfit I wore was served as pajamas, commonly wear, and outing attire as well. The turtleneck was my underwear in all seasons. They had been all dyed black. I suspect that darker color had been chosen for me so that my clothes would not look too bad if not laundered for a long time. In my shorts that had rubber bands at the waist and thighs, I played meekly like a good boy. Again, another another showing of submission to others. Specifically his wife. This is like the weirdest wife guy I've ever seen. The sunshine that had been as large as the handkerchief had already slipped out, but my wife was not home yet. Somewhat exhausted by the trifles I had been engaging in, and knowing that I had to be back to my room before her return, I retired to my room. My room was dusky. I had pulled the bedding quilt over my head to take a nap. That quilt, which had never been removed from its set location, seemed to be a welcome part of my body. Sometimes I fell asleep promptly, sometimes I simply felt sandy all over my skin. Then I would conjure up a theme and meditate about it. Under the limp quilt, my imagination invented many things and wrote many treatises. I composed a lot of poems. But at the moment of falling asleep, every product of my imagination would dissolve into damp air in the room like soap bubbles melting in the water. And waking up, I would find myself a mere congestion of a nervous system, a lump like a pillow stuffed with buckwheat husks or cotton shreds. I hated bed bugs very much, but several bed bugs managed to survive in my room all the time, even in winter. If I had any worries, they derived from my hatred for those bugs. I scratched the itching parts bitten by the bugs until my skin bled. It was sore, it was certainly an act of profound pleasure. I fell asleep luxuriously. In my contemplating sessions under the damp quilt, I never engaged in positive thinking. For me, that was not necessary at all. If I discovered something positive, eventually I had to discuss it with my wife and she would scold me, and that was bothersome. Describing things as bothersome is something Yi Sang actively does in Limbus Company, even after his Kanto. He does describe a lot of things as bothersome rather than like notably bothersome instead of as like any other descriptor. That is one of his main keywords inside his own dictionary. Although I am not afraid of her scolding, I would rather be lazy like a loafing beast than to be a respectable individual, social being and be scolded by her. If it were possible, I would cast off this meaningless mask of humanity. For me, human society was autonomous. Life was self-providing, everything was strange to me. My wife washes her face twice a day. I wash myself not even once a day. I usually go to relieve myself at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. If the moon is bright, I will linger outside absentmindedly for some time before returning to my room. So I rarely come across any of the 18 households. Still, I recognize most of the women in the 18 families. None of them is superior to my wife in beauty. Even after all this complaining, all this like I don't mind, like, yeah, she scolds me sometimes, I don't mind. He's like, yeah, my wife's fucking beautiful, dog. Yeah, these other women don't even come close. My wife's fucking beautiful. She's the best. This is like ultimate wife guy. My wife's first session of face washing at 11 in the morning is rather simple. Her second session around 7 in the evening takes much time and care. She dresses herself better and cleaner at night. She goes out at daytime and she goes at night at 2. Did she have a job? I could not tell where her occupation was. If she did not have a job, she did not have to go out, as I did not have to. But she did. She not only went out, but entertained many guests at home. When she had many guests, I had to stay under the bedding quilt in my room all the time when she was with them. I could not play with the magnifying glass, I could not sniff at the cosmetics. On those occasions, I pretended to be sorrowful. Then she would tip me a coin, a 50 Jion silver coin. I liked it. Since I did not know what to do with those coins, I used to throw them to the head of my bed until the silver coins fell into a small pile. My wife saw the collection of coins one day and bought me a coffer-shaped savings box. Aww. After I put all my coins in the box one by one, she locked the box and took the key away. I remember I kept dropping a coin now and then into the box after that, and I kept being lazy. When I found a trinket dangling like a pimple on my forehead, I understood why the saving box was lighter than before. Oh. Huh. I stopped paying attention to the box. I was too lazy to alert myself against such incidents. Oh. Okay, this got dark real fast. She's using reinforcement to the narrator. And at the same time, she's just taking that reinforcement away slowly by slowly. Just to satiate herself, it seems. When my wife was attending guests at night, however... Does the wife cheat? If she doesn't have a mom, if she doesn't have a job, how is she getting money? And consistent enough money to supply Yi Sang, I mean, the narrator, after entertaining guests if he doesn't interrupt. Is she into infidelity or prostitution? I'm not trying to judge for that, but... Well, infidelity I would judge for, but... Something's like really fucking strange here. When my wife was attending guests at night, however more deeply I might burrow into bed, I could not fall asleep on rainy nights. At such times I meditated on as why my wife had always had money. Much money. The visitors seemed not to be aware of my presence. At the side of the partition of the sliding door, they would frequently utter such reckless jokes to my wife that I myself would not dare to share with her. However, some of her guests were well-mannered. They usually left a little later than midnight. Some others were rather uncultured, and those personalities would order foods from nearby restaurants and would enjoy themselves all night. At first, I started to research the identity of my wife's occupation, but I failed to verify her vocation due to my limited knowledge of and short observations on life. I may never be able to discover what her profession is. My wife wore brand new white and cut socks all the time. She cooked rice too. As a matter of fact, I have never seen her cook, but she never failed to fetch me something to eat at mealtime. At her home, there is nobody but my wife and I, so she must have cooked the rice. Yet my wife never invited me to her room. I always ate and slept alone in the hidden room. The rice was tasteless, the side dishes were miserable, although I kept taking like the fodder like a puppy or chicken without complaints. I regretted the dreadful food now and then. Naturally, I was emaciated, my complexion growing paler and paler. I noticed my health failing me every day. The bones stood out there and there as tokens of undernourishment. I could not stand the pain at the joints of my bones in bed, so I tossed it aside and that tens of times a night. During my research about the origin of her money, I investigated what kind of food she was being served at the other side of the sliding door from the smell drifting in through the door's chinks. I had a troubled sleep. I realized that the money she spent was given by a strange visitor, whom I considered very silly. However, I could not understand the ethics of the guest leaving money and my wife taking it. Could it be out of sheer courtesy, or was it a price or reward for something? Does my wife look to them to be a pitiful woman in need of alms? As I tried to untangle such rituals, my intellect would whirl into chaos. The final conclusion I reached before falling asleep was that I did not like the whole business, but I did not ask her any questions about it. That questioning might have been troublesome, and anyway, I would forget it all by the time I look up. After the guests left, or when she returned home from her outing, she would change to common clothes and then drop in at my room. Within the quilt, she would whisper several untrue words into my ears to console me. With a smile that was neither sneer nor cheer, I looked up at her radiant face. She smiled, but I did not miss a ghost of sadness hovering about her countenance. She would certainly notice that I was hungry, yet she never once offered me the leftover foods in the other room. That was out of her respect towards me, I thought. Although I was hungry, it satisfied me. I did not care what she whispered into my ears before returning to her room. Silver coins she left at the head of my bed glittered in an electric light. How many of the coins could have gathered in the savings box? I did not lift the box to measure the weight, though. I merely dropped new coins in the narrow slot that looked like a buttonhole. He does say he has clothes to go on outings, but he never once in this book has described going out on an outing. All of this has been about the apartment complexes within the 18 families, including himself and his wife. That is a little horrifying. The depression must be that bad. The reason why my wife had to leave me silver coins was as much mystery to me as the reason why the visitors offered her money. Though I did not disapprove of her tipping me the coins, it offered me no more pleasure than the short happiness lasting from the moment my fingers touched a coin until it disappeared into the miniature coffer slot. One day I threw the savings box into the toilet. I did not know exactly how many coins were in it, but the box was quite heavy. I felt despondent when I recognized my existence on Earth was dashing with lightning speed across the limitless space. I wanted to get off the Earth promptly, lest I should feel giddy on that busy globe. After I meditated in my bed about such things, even such acts as dropping the coins in the box seemed to be annoying too. I hoped my wife would manage the saving business herself. I hopefully waited for her to take that box to her room if she hadn't a mind to at all, because my wife alone needed money, which never meant anything to me in the first place. But she did not take it with her. I almost decided to take it to her room myself, but there were many guests for those days that I found no opportunity to deliver it to her room, so I had to take it to the toilet. I sadly waited for her reproach, but she did not ask or say anything to me about it. That was not all. She kept giving me the coins. Soon there was this new small heap of coins by my pillow. Lying in bed, I started new research leading to the conclusion that there was no reason but simple pleasure that might have prompted my wife to tip me and the visitors to offer her money. I continued my research to determine what kind of pleasure there was, if pleasure had been the motivation for such charities. However, I could not discover it all from the research in bed alone. Pleasure. Pleasure. Does anyone know if this will be turned into a VOD? I always keep them public. If I read a book, a Sinner-based material, I keep them public, and I link them on the bottom of... the Sinner analysis type videos. Sinner analysis, the videos where I try to relate the IDs and like the base story of Limbus Company to said Sinner. My wife in a way confided to me all the time. I of course had no complaints, and I wanted to learn from experience if this pleasure existed or not. I sneaked out of my room while my wife was out. Outside on the street, I did not forget to change my coins for bills. They amounted to 5 won. With that money in my pocket, I lured around as please so that I might get lost. The wonderful outside world, which I had not seen for a long time, did not fail to arouse my nerves. Yeah, so this entire time he did not go outside once. Jesus fucking Christ, he didn't even wash himself. I was tired out immediately, but I endured. Till dark, I sauntered aimlessly here and there, not knowing why I was doing this. I did not spend a penny, of course. I did not dare to spend any. I seemed I had a long time ago completely lost the faculty of spending money. I could not stand fatigue any longer. I somehow got back to my house since I had to pass through my wife's door to reach mine. I hesitantly hemmed before the sliding door to notify her of my presence, in case she was with any visitors. Suddenly the door whacked open, and her face, along with a stranger's face behind it, peeked out at me. I faltered, a little dazed by the blinding light letting out of the room. I saw her spiteful stare, but I simply had to pretend that I'd see nothing. Why? Because I had to pass through her room, and I pulled the quilt over my head. My legs ached unbearably. In bed, I was going to fade at any moment. My heart pounded heavily. I'd been unaware of it while I was walking, but I was out of breath. Cold sweat stood out on my back. I regretted that I had gone out. I wanted a long sound sleep, forgetting all this fatigue. I wanted a good long sleep. As I lay on my side for some time, my thumping heart eased down. I felt much better. I tossed myself to lie down flat to look up the ceiling and stretch my legs. My heart was destined to keep on thudding for some time. Though the sling the sliding door, I overheard the hushed whispers shared my wife and man guests at the other side of the partition. I opened my eyes wide to further concentrate my auditory senses. I held my breath, then I heard them rise. The man put on his coat and hat, sliding door opened, and his heels slipped into his shoes. He thudded down to the yard, and her rubber shoes dragged down the stepping stones. The sound of unhurried feet went far towards the gate. I had never known of such behavior on part of my wife. To my best knowledge, she had not whispered any of her guests in such a manner before. I never missed any of the words spoken by my wife in that particular voice, which was neither too loud nor too quiet, although sometimes I ignored the warbles of the drunk, tongue-twisted guests. Some of the unsavory remarks made by her visitors got on my nerves, but I used to forgive them because they were relatively behaving themselves. I disapproved of that sudden change in her attitude towards her guests, probably because of some certain unavoidable reasons. I wondered, but I resolved not to engage myself anymore in such kind of research because I was tired that night, so I tried to sleep. I could not fall asleep at first, nor did she return from the gate quickly. Somehow, in the meantime, I fell asleep despite myself. My dream drifted along strange labyrinth streets. I was shaken violently. My wife was shaking me after she had seen her guest off. I opened my eyes wide to look up at her. No smile could I see on her face. I scrubbed my eyes and studied her expression more closely. Anger was in her eyes, her thin lips trembling. It was an anger that would not thaw away easily. I closed my eyes waiting for her to explode, but she gasped a while, and then I heard her long skirt swish away as she went back to her room. I tossed myself to squat like a frog, wrapping my back with a wedding quilt. And then again, I regretted that I had gone out. From the bed, I apologized to my wife that it was of her own misunderstanding. I believed that it was late enough for my own coming. Really, I did not know that it was earlier than midnight. I was too tired. I was foolish that I had walked too much. If it was really my fault, was it? Then what had I gone out for anyway? I wanted to give the money 5-1 that had been collected by my pillow to somebody, to anybody at all. That was all. It was still my fault, perhaps it was so. Was I not sorry about that? If I had known how to spend that 5-1, I certainly did not need to return home before midnight, but the streets were too crowded and there were too many of them. I could not point out a single person out of the crowd, the one to whom was supposedly to give that money away, even if eventually I tired myself out. Above all, I needed a rest. I wanted to lie down, I could not but come back home. I believed it was late enough, but it was fortunate that before midnight, I was sorry. I could apologize as much as she wanted, but what was all this apology for anyway? As long as she did not understand how it happened, it was annoying. For an hour I fidgeted like that. I pushed the quilt away, squirmed up, moved the side door and shuffled into the room. My head was swimming in half-consciousness. I only faintly remembered falling over her bedding quilt. I fished out the money from my hand pocket and crushed it into her hand. When I woke up the next morning, I was in her bed, in her room. This is the first time I had ever slept in her room since we moved to house number 33. The sun was high up, but she was not with me. She had gone out early in the morning. Well, she might have gone out last night immediately after I had fallen unconscious, but I did not feel like investigating it. My whole body was so sore that I felt difficulty even in wriggling my fingers. The sun in the window, a little bit smaller than a wrapping cloth, dazzled in my sight. In the column of sun rays, numerous particles of dust danced like microbes. My nostrils were stuffy. I pulled the quilt over my head and began working on a nap. But the scent of my wife's body coming from the bedding cloth stirred my nostrils, irritating me. I could not fall asleep as easily as I, tossing myself time and time again, floated amid clouds of various scents popping out in my memory. The perfumes smoking out of the colorful bottles in the makeup chest. As I could not stand it any longer, I kicked off the quilt and came back to my room. An assembly of bowls containing my cold breakfast was waiting there. Before going out, my wife had prepared that fodder for me. I was hungry at the moment. The first spoonful of rice felt against my tongue as cold as an iced fish slice. I put down the spoon and wormed into the bedding quilt. The bedding that had not been occupied the previous night welcomed me as usual. With the quilt over me, I slept heartily, very sound. The electric light was on when I woke up, but my wife was not in yet. Maybe she had returned and gone out. Why should I worry? I felt better. I recalled what happened the previous night. I simply could not describe the joy I felt when I, collapsing, thrust the money into her hand. I was enthralled that I understood to some extent the psychology of the visitors leaving money for my wife tipping me coins. I simpered. I, who had lived in ignorance of that delight, had been so naive, it seemed. I felt like dancing around. So I wanted to go out again that night, but I had no money. I resented that I'd give her all of the 5-1 last night. I regretted that I dumped the savings box into a latrine, and I was quite disappointed and listily thrust my hands in my pants pocket, where money had been once and fished around. To my great surprise, I felt something. It was money, though, only 2-1. It did not need to be much money. What was there was sufficient for me, and I was grateful for what I got. I found my strength, straight out to the street triumphantly, attired in my only corduroy suit, unaware of my hunger and unmentionable appearance. Going out, I restlessly prayed for time to flee like a shot arrow so that I would be past midnight in no time. Though I liked that I had been given her money and slept in her room, I was afraid to confront her, accusing Sarah in the unfortunate case that I should return home before midnight while she was with her companion. I roamed around until dark, glancing again at the street clock. Strangely, I was not easily tired at the evening. The only thing that bothered me was the slowness of time. After I made sure by the big clock at the Gyeongseong station that it was after midnight, I headed home. I found my wife talking to her guests at the gate. I passed by them, ignoring the presents, and went to my room. A while later, she came in. She began to sweep the room in the middle of the night, something she had not done in her whole life. Afterwards, as soon as I heard her lie down to sleep, I opened the sliding door, plunged into her room, and gave her 2-1. She cast a questioning glance at me, as if she wondered why I had not spent that money that night, and she let me sleep in her room without any questions. I did not want to give this joy for anything in the world. I slept soundly. The next morning when I woke up, she was not home. Lethargic, I crept back to my room and took a nap. When she shook me to wake me up, the light was on as usual. She invited me to her room. This too was unprecedented. She pulled my arm all the while, a smile rippling on her face. I was quite restless, suspecting there might be a secret plot hidden behind such a strange attitude. At her request, I dragged myself to her room. Supper was prepared there. I remember that I had not eaten anything for 2 days. Fuck, man. Jesus. I vaguely wondered if I was hungry at all. I reasoned that even if a thunder of wrath followed this last supper, I would not be resentful. In fact, I had been too annoyed by the boring human world. Everything bothered and troubled me, but an unexpected catastrophe would have excited me. Peacefully, I shared that quiet, odd supper with my wife. We didn't talk to each other, so after supper I simply slouched back and shuffled back to my room. She did not hold me back. Sitting against the wall with a cigarette in my mouth, I waited for thunder to strike soon. It would strike at all. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But there was no thunder. Tension gradually eased down. I was already thinking about going again out again at night, wishing I had some money. Since when did Yisang had a book? Yisang is actually a poet and an author, and this is one of his most popular works. I was sad and angry that bank bills did not. I had no money. Tension gradually eased down. I was already thinking about going again that night, wishing I had some money. I had no money with me. There'd be no joy I could expect afterwards, even if I would go out. I was crestfallen. Angrily, I rolled in bed. The rice I had just eaten seemed to push up back to my throat. I felt nausea. I was sad and angry that bank bills did not pour down from the sky like a shower. Did not know any other way to get money. I think I cried in a little bed. Sad that I had no money. Yeah, the MC may not be Yuseng himself. I don't know, maybe? Then my wife came to my room again. Holding my breath, I squatted like a toad and waited for the violent reproach that I anticipated to fall upon me. On the contrary, the voice emitting of my wife's lips was a tender one. She spoke of affection. She said she understood why I cried. She says it was because I had no money. I was surprised. I was worried by her ability for such a thorough understanding of mine, yet I was happy because I noticed the way she spoke to me that she would give me some money. As I waited for her next move, wrapping myself to quit here, she dropped something near my pillow, something that sounded like a bill. Then she whispered in my ear that it would be perfectly alright if I returned home that night later than usual. That was by no means difficult. Above all, I was grateful for the money. Anyway, I went out. I had an early case of nyctalopia, so I chose to wander along the streets illuminated brightly. I went to Gyeongsang Station and stopped by a tea room near the waiting hall for the express passengers. That tea room was a great discovery of mine. First of all, nobody I knew came there. Even if there was one, he would not stay too long there. I decided that I would come to the tea room every day to pass the time. What I liked about the place was that the clock there kept more accurate time than any clocks anywhere, so I did not have to face any misfortune of returning home too early. Mistaken by a stupid clock, I sat with nothingness in a booth and sipped a hot cup of coffee. Amid their busy hours, the passengers seemed to enjoy a cup of coffee with relish. They would gaze at the wall as if in deep thought, sipping the coffee in a hurry, and then would leave. It was sad, but I truly loved the sadness about the place. Something I cherished more than the depressing atmosphere of the other street-side tea rooms. Occasional shrill screaming of the train hoots sounded more familiar and intimate to me than Mozart. I've been here for less than 10 minutes and I'm already tired. Maybe I'm a lightweight, but how do you do this so easily? Because I experienced Limbus Company first, and I'm trying to make all sorts of connections. Like, when I've heard descriptors of his room, I was immediately reminded of Blade Lane G-Sang when he described how he was lucky to have room number 7. I remembered his release 2-star ID of 7 Association Yi-Sang. He described he had the 7th room of the 18 guest house, of the 18 room house, and that immediately brought 7 Association Yi-Sang to mind. Just now, when the coffee was described, I was reminded of the 7 Association Faust, as he went to either get coffee or tea. He specifically asked for mint tea. So I'm immediately reminded of the free update art for 7 Association Faust, which also connects right back to 7 Association Yuseng, considering he's in the 7th room in the 18 room house. His general depression and ambiguity towards life reminds me a lot of W Corp Yuseng. I'm already making so much connections like this pertaining to my video. I think the Ring Poichil student Yuseng correlates more to how he is in Limbus than he is in what I'm reading so far. That's the Spider Index Nurse Father Yuseng carries a sort of cadence to him that reminds me a lot of someone who's passive and depressed, as in following only the prescripts rather than his own code. Like the narrator of this book, who we can presume is Yuseng. And generally, I do not have an idea so far why the fuck the story is called The Wings, and I'm excited to see why. Would never made those connections. Wow, it's impressive. My mother is an English major. One of my Some of my favorite books ever made are Catcher in the Rye, The Stranger, and The Metamorphosis. I think it's a shame that The Catcher in the Rye had nothing to do with Limbus. Like, there was no inspiration for Limbus with The Catcher in the Rye, but what can you do? Okay. As this shit genuinely has words. I read up and down the short list on the menu several times. The names of foods looked as remote to me as the names of my early childhood friends. Also, the League of Nine Literaires, like the original one, is actually based on a group that the author Yi Sang was a part of. I forget what it's named, but my friend Juju, who is a massive Koreaboo, and I don't say that derogatorily, but she knows a lot of Korean literature, and not in the way where she's like a K-poppy, but she, I'm pretty sure, but she actively remembers like a lot of things about Korean literature, and a lot of her works, her own personal works, are supported by the way Koreans write. In fact, Juju is actually the person that told me about Bamboo Head Kim's main inspiration being a political writer. If I recall correctly, the real name was Jinho. That's so. Yeah, the Jinho Circle 9. Yeah. Jinho Circle 9, which is like actually the literary village of Kim Yeoljun. So, like, there's actual inspiration. I'm going to directly ask Juju when I make the Yi Song video to, like, get me, like, the absolute facts. Because, like, out of anybody in that video, for that, I trust Juju. And, okay, I'm gonna comment about Monastic Experience real quick, because I was just reminded of, Bamboo Headed Kim, and a lot of people are disappointed with his personality. Bamboo Head Kim, and the person he's based off of, is a political commentator and a comedian poet. The reason why Kim acts like that is because he is based off him. And that's as simple as. A lot of people don't know that, but Bamboo Head Kim, in fact, is based off of, Kim Sakat. Kim Sakat, this is the original Bamboo Head Kim. A South Korean poet. This right here is Bamboo Head Kim. They're the same person. This is who Bamboo Head Kim's based off of. And I'm completely dead ass. Huh, so tying the tying of Kantos to the author's real life scenario is deeper than I thought. Yeah, I actually heard about this. And so, a lot of people saying that Bamboo Head Kim's nonchalant nature makes no sense. You're just fucking wrong. It makes total sense. She also mentioned that Leihang and the entirety of the Pinky is based off the wire margin. I mean to read that. I'm going... How... Okay. One sec. The water margin is 70 to 120 chapters. English translation, 850 to 900 pages. Okay, I think I'm going to put that one off for a while. Where does Bamboo Head Kim come from? It comes from the name Sakat, which is a bamboo hat. And the last name of the poet was Sakat, so it's Kim Sakat. So it's literally Bamboo Hat Kim, a direct translate of Kim Sakat's name. Anyways. As with drifting and swaying thoughts lost in time, customers disappeared one after another, and the waiters began to clear the tables and corners of the room, so it must be to the time to close. A little past 11, the tea room ceased to be shelter for me. I shambled out, worrying where I should go to pass the time. Loitering until and after midnight. It was raining, the raindrops were big enough to harass me, for I did not have an umbrella or raincoat. For not having a boost in such quaint attire of mine, I could no longer loaf in the hall of the station, so I left the place ready to risk the rain. Hi, Rome. It was so cool outside I could not stand much of it. I'm reading the water margin now. Tell me how it is. It was so cool outside that I could not stand much of it. My corduroy suit was soaked, my wet underwear damp and cold against my skin, and I tried to wander in the rain until the last moment I could endure, waiting for midnight to come and go, but I could not stand it too long. I got a chilly with my fever, my teeth chattering. Hurrying my pace, I thought, well, she certainly wouldn't have any guests on such a night of hard rain. I decided to believe she had no visitors. I had to go home. If she unfortunately had guests, I would beg her for understanding my situation. Because she could see it was raining so hard and she would forgive me for anything. Here back home, she was not alone. I was cold and damp. I happened to forget to knock, and I happened to see what my wife would have preferred me not to. Leaving huge wet footprints across my wife's room, I came into my den, took my wet clothes off, and covered myself with bedding quit. I shivered all over. The freezing was growing severe. I felt the earth was crumbling down underneath me. Finally, I fell unconscious. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, my wife was sitting by me with a worried look. I caught cold. I felt cold. My limbs lethargic, and I had a splitting headache. She felt my head and said I had to take medicine, as I thought I would have to take an anti-febrile because I had such a first fever as to feel her hands cold against my forehead. She gave me a cup of warm water and 4 tablets. She told me I would be alright if I took the tablets and had a sound sleep. I gulped them down, a little arid. They tasted like aspirins. I pulled the quilt over me again and fell asleep as if dying instantly. I ailed for 7 days, sniffling. I continually took the tablets when I was sick, recovered from the cold, but my appetite didn't return. Everything tasted as bitter as sumac bark. I regained the urge to go out, but my wife forbade me. She told me to take the medicine every day and stay in bed. She said I had gone out for no good reason at all, but to fall sick and bother her. She's right. So I decided I would look after my health. Taking the medicine every day and not going out again. Okay, she showed genuine care at first, for a second, and then she said, you fell sick just to bother me. That's a little fucking crazy. I don't know what's up with his wife. I don't get it. I don't understand. She loves him, then she doesn't. Insanely backhanded. I slept day and night, covered myself with the quilt. Day and night, deadly sleep hung heavily over me, and I firmly believed it was an evidence of my recovery that I wanted so much sleep. It seemed a month had passed that way. My hair and beard had grown out so long that I felt scruffy, so I sneaked into my wife's room while my wife was out and sat before the makeup chest to see how I looked. It was quite a sight. My hair and beard bristled out in all directions. I made up my mind to have my hair cut today, and I took the bottles, removed the stoppers, and sniffed the perfumes one by one. The scent I had forgotten for so long stung my nostrils. I called my wife's name in heart. Yon Sim. Okay, so it's not Dongbek. I played with the magnifying glass too. I played with the mirror. The sun rays trickling down the window were so warm. Well, it was May already. Wait, okay, Yon Sim could be a first name? We don't know the last name. I stretched myself in light. I could never imagine Limbacy sang with a beard. I don't think he has enough testosterone for that. That sounds weird on paper, but I mean, like, some men do not produce enough testosterone to have a beard. That's not like, I'm not trying to be like, trans people aren't real. I'm trans, dog. Sun rays trickling through the window were so warm. Well, it was May already. I stretched myself and lied down in my wife's bed and wanted to brag to God that my life was so comfortable and pleasant. I maintained no relationships with anything in the world. Not even God perhaps could praise or punish me. Then I noticed a very strange thing. This bottle of sulfuric Adeline. I found it under the makeup chest. and I thought it looked like aspirin. I opened it, exactly 4 tablets were missing. Remember, I had taken 4 pills that morning. I slept. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, and the day before that, I had been heavily drowsy. I had recovered from the cold, but she kept giving me the drugs. Once a neighbor's house was on fire while I was deep asleep, I did not know because I was asleep. Okay, I'm just gonna check one. Oh, wow. Okay, she gave him sleeping meds. That's insane. I remember I had taken 4 pills that morning. I slept. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, and the day before that. I had been heavily drowsy. I had recovered from the cold, but she kept giving me the drugs. Once the neighbor's house was on fire while I was deeply asleep. I did not know it because I was asleep. I slept like that then. I must have taken Adelines, believing they were aspirins for a month. That was too much. She fucking roofied him. Also, okay, I'm sorry. Last time I do this. Promise you, last time I do this. When I saw that line, I immediately thought instant correlation was to the pills that Gubo gave you, son. The immediate correlation stuck out like that. That's fucking terrifying. All of a sudden, I felt giddy and I almost fainted. I left home with the ball of drugs in my pocket and I climbed up a hill. I did not want to see anything in the human world. Plotting, I tried not to think anything about my wife. I did not want to faint on the road. I was going to do some research about my wife after I found and sold at a sunny place. Miss Meek, can I show you something cool on Discord real quick that I think might be cool and related to the wife's name? Couldn't fall asleep. Yeah, sure. Let me see. I can't open Discord on stream because all the Yuri you sent me, but please do. That mirror you're holding is what I call Yeonism. Oh my god, wait, yeah, that is very similar to what he calls the mirror. That was, oh my god. Yusong does call the mirror Yeonism. It's like a, fuck, what is it called? It's like a anagram. And the mirror in his story is his wife's mirror. Jesus Christ. I try not to think about my wife. I did not want to faint on the road. I was going to do some research about my wife after found and settled down at a sunny place. I thought about the multiplication and breeding of the roadside forsythia, the skylarks, and the stones. Okay, one more thing. Oh! 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 Holy shit! That's what Spice Bush is! When I saw that yellow, like, my fucking gears started turning. I mean, when I see the flowers of instant mental regression. Also, I don't know how many pages are left, but I might not be able to finish all this. I'm just worrying because I do have to drop off my mother. Oh. Where is it? Oh, I'm gonna probably be able to read all of this. Plotting, I try not to think. Thought about the multiplication and breeding of the roadside force with the skylarks and the stones. Fortunately, I did not faint on the road. There was a bench. I sat on it stiffly and began my investigation on aspirins and adelines. Wait! Last thing. I swear to God, last thing. Promise you, last thing. The way the room is described. Last thing. I'm done. Last thing. Last thing. I swear I'm done. This is the wife's side of the room. And note how it's for the Dongbaek ID. What the fuck, man? God. There's the... Fortunately, I did not faint on the road. There's the bench. I sat on it stiffly and began my investigation on aspirins and adelines, but my mind was in such a confusion that I could not lead an organized scientific reasoning. I turned gruff and annoyed because astray thoughts would not let my investigation continue for even 5 consecutive minutes. I took out the 6 adelines I had brought with me from my pocket and chewed them. They tasted funny. Then I lay down full length on the bench. Why had I done it? I could not give the reason, I simply wanted to. I felt deeply asleep there. In my sleep, I faintly heard the distant chatter of stream running along the rocks. When I woke up, the day was already bright. I had slept there 1 full day and night. Landscape looked pure yellow. Come on! Block of thoughts about aspirin and Adeline through my head. Adeline, aspirin, Marks, Malthus, Matrosh, aspirin, Adeline. My wife had been giving me Adelines for a month, telling me they were aspirins. The evidence was only obvious because I found the bottle in her room. For what purpose she did make me sleep day and night? What did she do all the time I was asleep after she gave me the drug? Did she want me to die gradually? What I had taken might have been really aspirins after all. Maybe she was the one who had to take Adelines herself to help her fall asleep and overcome the certain agony she had. If so, I was sorry. I was sorry that I had suspected her so much. Even with all this evidence, I'm gonna stop saying the narrator. Yi Sung himself desperately wants to believe in his wife. He's that submissive to her and wants to create... Okay, I can't say create problems for no one else. He genuinely believes that he just doesn't want to create problems for his wife. And he does not want to suspect her. He's a good man. He's misfortunate, but that's... He is definitely a good man. Unfortunately, manipulated, but I'm rooting for him at the end of all this, even though it is so depressing. I hurried my way down the hill. I walked towards my home. My legs reeling beyond control. It was almost 8 o'clock. I was going to confess and apologize to her for all my evil thoughts. I was in such a hurry that I forgot to prepare what I was going to say. Then a really terrible thing happened. I happened to see what I should not. In a flurry, I shut the sliding door in my wife's room and clung to the doorpost, hanging my head to get over the dizziness. The next instant, the door opened and my wife, her clothes ruffled, rushed over out of the room to clutch my neck. I tumbled down, my head in turmoil. Then she landed on top of me and bit me at random. It hurt, so I had no strength or intention to resist. I sprawled down meekly and let her do whatever she wanted about me. Soon her guest came out of the room, lifted her, and went back to her room, carrying her in his arms. I hated her being so submissively carried away into the room by a stranger. I hated her. Yeah, so her wife was cheating. His wife was cheating, excuse me. Yi Sang in Limbus isn't a girl yet. On our way back to her own room, my wife raved viciously that I had been loafing around night after night making love to women or stealing things. That really was too much. I could not protest about anything, dumbfounded. I almost started to scream at her that she had been planning to kill me, but I restrained myself, for I did not want to face any consequences by saying anything I was not so sure of. Believing science was the best policy at the moment, I shambled up to my feet, quietly pulled out the money from my pocket, and not knowing exactly why I did so, I put it before the sliding door and ran away. Several times I was almost run over by a car before I managed to reach Gyeongsong Station. I wanted to sit in an empty booth and somehow get rid of the sour taste in my mouth. Coffee, fine, but at the moment I stepped into the station building, I suddenly recalled that there was not even a single penny in my pocket. I felt dizzy. I was at a loss, faltering before the building, roaming here and there like a haunted person. I do not remember where I had been. Several hours later, I found myself on the roof of the Mitsukoshi department store. It was about noon. I flopped down anywhere at random and started collecting the 26 years of my life. He's experiencing all this so fucking young? Jesus Christ! Oh, he's so young! Oh! Oh my god! Jesus Christ! Look, I'm only 21, but Jesus Christ, he's not even 30? What the fuck? Okay, it doesn't make it any more worse, but like he's so young. The fuck, he's only a year older than me. For me, even the significance of no particular subject popped out of my lax memory. Then I asked myself, the author Yu Sang also died at age 26, so what the fuck? Jesus. Okay, I'm sorry. I asked myself, what desire do you have for life? But I did not want to answer whether I had any desire at all. For me, even the significance of my own existence was difficult to decipher. Stooping, I watched goldfish in a nearby pool. They looked nice. The bigger ones as well as the smaller ones looked lively. In the showering May sun rays, the fish dropped their shadows at the bottom of the glass bowl. Their fins waved like handkerchiefs, trying to count the number of fins. I kept stooping down. My back was warm against the sun. I looked down at the lurid street below. Down there, the tired life swayed heavily like the fins of the goldfish. They could not free themselves from the glue, and the invisible tangle of threads shackling them. I realized I could not but mingle into a littered street, dragging my body suffering from fatigue and hunger. Suddenly, I stopped to think. Where was I now? My wife's face popped out before my eyes. Aspirins and Adelines. We misunderstood each other. How could she have given me Adelines instead of aspirins? I would not believe it. She could not have done so, as I did not go around stealing or making love to women every night. It was not so, really. We were like a lame couple, destined to not harmonize with each other's gait. I did not need to summon any logic to justify her behavior or mine. There was no need for any defense. We would stumble on truth and misunderstanding on their own separate ways. Was that not the usual way? But I was not so sure if it was right for me to trudge back to my wife. Should I, or else where should I go? A siren wail announcing noon. It was a glorious noon. People vigorously were whirling around amid the commotion of glass, steel, marble, money, and ink. My armpit suddenly itched. Ah, it was there when my imitation wings had split out. The wings that I had no longer. The depleted phantasm of hopes and ambition flashed in my mind like the flipping of pages of a pocket dictionary. I stopped my pace and wanted to shout. Wings spread out again. Fly, fly, fly. Let me fly once more. Let me fly just once more. Translated by Ung Jung-hyo. Oh my fucking Christ. That was good. That was really good. I almost cried. I don't know why, but like hearing how young he was going through all this, I thought he was like 52 or something. That fucking seeing that happen to someone so young. just, I don't know, that just broke me down. I might take a look at some of his other works, but Jesus fuck. That already built so much seeds of what I've seen in Kanto. In Kanto 4. The Aspirin and Adeline, characterized by Gubo. Gubo himself, is he based off a real person? The Forsythia, giving an actual name to the spice bush. Oops, I don't give a fuck about Kappa 1. It's Forsythia itself, actually giving a face to a name for spice bush for me. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know that spice bush was real. I thought it was like a standard type of plant. I didn't know it's specifically a significant type of flower. Giving a face to a name for Ionism, being his wife, and in how being quote-unquote the ideal partner for his wife led to a lot of types of self-sacrifice. And Jesus Christ. Jesus fucking Christ. I'm gonna have to wrap this up right now because I have to drive my mom somewhere soon. And I do not want to overstay my welcome, but yeah. No, Yusang is absolutely getting a video. The real Yusang suffered from worsening tuberculosis, but there is something so bleak about writing that when the year before his death, where the perspective character matches the age he passed away. The way he described specifically, like, how he was suffocating, and he mentioned, like, so casually that he didn't eat for 2 whole days. He was preparing himself for a death that he didn't even know was happening. So, comparative to Yisung, I think Yisung's story in Limbus Company does remain true to what I've seen from the Wings. And Yeonism is actually one of the most key components in it. And the way Yisung views himself is present in Sangi. I think the adaptation of Yisung's character is very good from the Wings. We don't even know if Yisung is the narrator of the story, but we can tell it's from a personal approach regardless. I have no idea if this or the metamorphosis is worse on the misery scale. I think the metamorphosis is more miserable. But like hearing this happen to such a young person, just ooh, that just struck a nerve for me. But I do think even in this, Limbus Company was able to give Yisung in one way or another a happy ending. I'm just gonna have to, it's gonna be a struggle, but I'm gonna have to find a way to relate this to Dongbang somehow. I already know how to relate this to Dongbak, of course, but Jesus fucking Christ. Dongbang's probably from another work of his that I have to read. I'll do it on my own time. Alright, that's it. Thank you all for watching. And have a good